50 million people died, not in a war, not in a plague, not in a single catastrophic moment that the world could point to and name. They died because the sky went empty, the rain stopped coming, the crops failed, and then the people did too, across 3 continents simultaneously in the span of 2 years. 50 million. That is 3 times the death toll of the First World War. It is the entire population of California, Texas, and New York combined. Gone in 2 years, and almost nobody today has heard of it. But here is the part that should stop you cold. The ocean that caused it, the same Pacific Ocean that overheated in the 1870s and broke the atmosphere for 3 continents, is running warmer right now in 2026 than it was then. The scientists watching it are not using words like concerning. They are using words like unprecedented. Stay with me. Part 1. The Invisible Engine. In 1875, something shifted beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean. No alarm sounded. No government received a warning. No scientist sent a telegram. The water simply began warming, quietly, invisibly, across thousands of miles of open sea. And that silent change was about to kill 50 million people. Here is what makes this terrifying. The warming did not happen overnight. It built slowly over months, the kind of slow that lets you miss it until it is too late. The Pacific Ocean covers more of Earth's surface than all the land on the planet combined. And it does not just sit there, it breathes. Massive rivers of warm and cold water flow through it constantly, driving wind patterns, pulling moisture into the sky, deciding where rain falls on every continent. When those rivers stay on course, billions of people eat. When they shift, the world starves. What was building in the Pacific in 1875 was the strongest El Niño ever recorded in human history. A massive pool of unusually warm water spreading across the central and eastern Pacific, disrupting the atmospheric highways that delivered rain to 3 of the most populated farming regions on Earth: India, China, Brazil. All 3, simultaneously, about to lose their rain. And not one of the hundreds of millions of people living in those regions had any idea what was coming. Part 2. When the monsoon never came. June 1876, India. Every farmer on the subcontinent knew the rhythm. The southwest monsoon arrived like clockwork, usually the first week of June. Dark clouds building on the horizon. The smell of rain before the drops hit. Then the downpour, soaking the cracked earth, signaling the start of planting season. June 1876 passed. Clear skies. July came, still nothing. The horizon stayed bright and flat. The temperature climbed. The soil that should have been soft and wet baked into something that looked like old pottery. Hard, pale, cracked into geometric patterns as far as anyone could see. India at this time held roughly 250 million people. The vast majority were subsistence farmers. They grew exactly what they needed to eat and little more. No backup warehouse, no national reserve. If the harvest failed, the family starved. That was the arithmetic of life. And then, here is the part that most history books leave out entirely. While millions of Indians were starving in the dust, British colonial administrators continued exporting massive quantities of wheat from India to markets in Europe. The ships kept sailing, the wheat kept moving from Indian ports to British tables, while the people who grew that wheat died in the fields beside empty granaries. The Pacific Ocean created the drought. British policy created the famine at the scale it reached. 6 million people died in India alone, in a country that was simultaneously exporting food abroad. Part 3. The rivers that vanished. While India burned, something stranger was happening in China. The rivers stopped flowing. China in the 1870s ran on its rivers. The Yellow River and the Yangtze were not just water sources, they were the veins of an entire civilization. Farming villages lined their banks for thousands of miles. Irrigation systems built over centuries channeled river water into fields that fed hundreds of millions of people. When El Niño disrupted atmospheric circulation over Asia, rainfall in northern and central China collapsed. The rivers began to drop, first slowly, then dramatically. By 1877, rivers that had flowed deep and wide for as long as anyone could remember were reduced to shallow, muddy channels threading through cracked riverbeds that had never seen daylight. People walked across the Yellow River on foot, not across a bridge, not by boat, on foot, across exposed mud where one of the great rivers of human civilization used to flow. In Shanxi province alone, historical estimates suggest between 5 and 10 million people died. One province, 10 million people. That is the entire population of New York City today, gone from a single province in 2 years, and the world barely recorded it. Part 4. Why it is happening again. Here is what the scientists watching the Pacific in 2026 are seeing. Ocean surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific have been running above their historical average for an extended period. The pattern of where warm water is pooling and how deep it extends matches the build-up phase of a significant El Niño event. The buoy networks scattered across the Pacific are measuring warm water anomalies at depth, warm water that historical analysis associates with El Niño development. But here is the detail that separates 2026 from 1877. The ocean warming in 1875 was an exceptional departure from baseline, an unusual event on top of a relatively cool ocean. In 2026, the baseline itself is higher. The average surface temperature of the world's oceans has risen measurably since the 19th century. The threshold that has to be crossed to reach the kind of oceanic temperatures that disrupted the atmosphere in 1877 is closer than it has ever been. The distance between normal and dangerous has shrunk, and the Atlantic Ocean, the partner that combined with the Pacific to create the three-continent atmospheric gridlock of 1877, is also running warmer than historical averages right now. Both oceans, simultaneously, warmer than they were in 1877. The scientists who study this are not predicting a repeat of 1877 with certainty. Climate systems are complex, trajectories can shift, but they are saying, clearly in published peer-reviewed research, that the conditions required for a repeat are less exceptional today than they were 150 years ago. The atmosphere does not know what year it is. It responds to the ocean it finds. And the ocean it is finding in 2026 is the warmest in recorded human history. 50 million people died between 1876 and 1878. The event was so large, so fragmented across continents, so buried under colonial record-keeping and collective grief that the world forgot it within a generation. It was only in 2001, 125 years later, that scientists officially connected all the regional droughts into a single unified event driven by a single oceanic source. One Pacific warming that broke the atmosphere for 3 continents and killed more people than the First World War. And the ocean is warmer now than it was then. The populations living under the atmospheric systems affected by El Niño are larger now than they were then. The global food supply chain that feeds those populations holds less backup inventory now than any previous era in history. Weeks of supply, not months, weeks. The warning systems today are better than 1877. The early warning networks are real. The satellites watching the Pacific are extraordinary tools that would have seemed miraculous to anyone alive during the famine. But a warning only matters if what comes after it is equal to the scale of what it warns about. In 1877, the ocean went first, then the sky, then the crops, then the people. The sequence is not a mystery. The ocean is already moving. The question, the only question that has ever mattered, is whether the world that comes after the warning will be different from the world that came after the silence.